3 weeks ago, I decided to head on down to Moore County to the January meeting of the Moore County Tea Party Patriots, or Moore Tea Patriots for short. The speaker that evening was Vernon Robinson, and I gotta tell you, his presentation was phenomenal. It was great. And he definitely passed the tell me something I didn't know test. And I gotta tell you that day first, let me just kind of back up for a second, just say that that was a great day. I got up early, went on down to Laurinburg, got a nice big meal at Golden Corral there, and drove around pretty much the whole southeastern part of the state and recorded a lot of dash cam footage for my sister channel, Gregarious Drivers of Greensboro, and did a lot of filming of different new highway projects that they're building and that they've recently completed too. So I drove like 500 miles on that day, and it was great. It's great. And the venue that this meeting was at the Little River Golf Resort in Carthage, North Carolina. And this place was like a huge, one of those huge southern mansions. And they even had little rocking chairs in the front of the building. And it was neat. You walk in and you go to this bar area. You pay like I think it's like $16 or $18 for your meal. They had like turkey dressing and mashed potatoes, rolls, sweet tea, ice water. I think they had coffee there too. And then after you pay, you go up to the second floor, and I got there a little early. I was told the meetings, if you start at 5, that's when they'll start serving dinner. But actually they start serving dinner at 5:30. The meeting gets started usually a little after 6, about 6:10 or so, and they have to be out of there. It's a hard close at 7:30. They absolutely have to be out of there by 7:30. That's part of their agreement with this golf resort is the golf resort. They actually close the restaurant, or the what you call it, the meeting place for that evening. They always meet the fourth Monday of the month as Moore Tea citizens. They're about an hour and a half from Greensboro, so not too bad. Of course, I had everybody everybody was so nice and friendly. It was like, oh, you made the trip all the way from Greensboro, and I'm like, it's no big deal. Raleigh's about the same driving time, maybe a little less, but still. Part of the reason why I moved to Greensboro was I wanted to live in a medium-sized city, one that's not too big, but not too small either, and I wanted to be able to go to political events all over the state, and not, if I lived like over in Charlotte, it'd be like close to 3 hours to Raleigh, but if I lived in Greensboro, it's like an hour 15 to Raleigh, maybe an hour 30 to Charlotte, and most of the state I can get to in about 3 hours maximum. So, and I want to let you know, I'm not going to go to every single meeting of the Moore Tea citizens. I'm going to try to go to most of them, but I know that, driving 3 hours round trip, is an expense, and it's wear and tear on my car. I don't worry about that too much, but it's more about what the topic is. The topic in February is on foreign policy, and that is not an area that I'm interested in, really. But voter outreach and strategy is. So let me talk to you about Vernon Robinson, and I gotta tell you, this guy's like one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met in politics. I gotta tell you, he was very good. Very, 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 knows his craft, definitely. Looking at my notes here. Okay. He's a co-founder of Black Americans to re-elect Trump. He was chairman, one of the former chairman of the Ben Carson campaign. And get this, they raised $18 million. That's a huge chunk of change. And their goal is they want to get 20% of African Americans to vote Republican. Whereas in the South, it's about 15% because, southern states are already more favorable to the GOP than states like Pennsylvania and Michigan. South Carolina and Alabama are a lot more favorable already than Pennsylvania and Michigan, right? Okay, so looked at the 2018. Okay, we had a couple interactive poll questions. One was, when GOP candidates reach black voters with radio ads, does black turnout go up or goes down? Well, it actually goes down because remember that Democrats usually get 90% of the black vote, okay? So right there, they almost already have all the black vote. So if the GOP airs ads, a lot of the black people that vote, listen to the radio stations and everything, their turnout goes down for those voters, but it goes up for the GOP. The 2018 campaign, their goal was to target 8 swing states, including North Carolina, and get 20% of the black vote. They had 6,200 donors that averaged $40 a piece given to this Black Americans for Trump organization. Richard Nadler was the assistant on this campaign, and one thing that Mr. Robinson mentioned was that the Democrats, get this, okay, during September and October when the election was really hitting hot and heavy, the Democrats were running 4 ads an hour on urban contemporary radio stations. And the GOP consultants, they've really in the ditch here. According to Robinson, the GOP consultants say, don't communicate with black voters, just don't do it. Don't talk to them. But meanwhile, the Dems say, hey, blacks, vote for us. The GOP will just kill your dog and grandma. And that is, nothing could be further from the truth on that, by the way. Ugh. Yeah, the Dems are just awful. But really, what Robinson wants to target for 2020 is really the Steve Harvey show and the Tom Joyner show. Steve Harvey does Morning Drive on Urban Contemporary Radio, and Tom Joyner is usually, morning or afternoon, one of those. But Tom Joyner's a little bit more liberal than Harvey. But remember, Steve Harvey endorsed Clinton back in 2016. And this is really targeting the plus 35 demographic age. Younger than that, people my age, they just don't vote as much as the plus 35 crowd does. Okay, so this plan started way back in 2010. The current chairman at that time was Tom Fetzer of the North Carolina Republican Party, and he approved Robinson's Get Out the Vote plan for blacks, okay? But Phil Berger overruled Fetzer and said he needed money for a sheriff's race in Cumberland County that year. Robinson then went to the new chair, Fetzer stepped down in 2011. Hayes was voted in by acclamation in 2011. So 2012 comes around. Vernon Robinson asked Robin Hayes, can you help me with this campaign? And Robin Hayes said no. Guess who is chair right now and is running for another term right now in June as the NCGOP chairman? Robin Hayes. So, if you're a fan of Vernon Robinson and you're a fan of and you want to win elections and you want to increase outreach in the party and get more blacks to vote Republican, then you need to vote for Jim Womack, okay? Don't vote for Robin Hayes. The man is, he had some troubles with Hassan Harnett and Tim Johnson, and that's all I'm going to say about those. Okay, he just does not like people of that demographic very much. Let's just put it that way. The 2014 race. Let's see. The polling. Okay, before Robinson started running radio ads in North Carolina, Tom Tillis was getting 1%, one teensy weensy percentage point of the African American vote. Okay. Robinson ran radio ads on Tom Tillis' behalf for a 3-week period. After 3 weeks, Tom Tillis was getting 5% of the black vote. Okay. Oh yeah, and the polling showed after that 3-week period, Kay Hagan was in big trouble because she was only getting 73% of the black vote. And remember that usually for Democrats, their target is 90%. Okay, so this was well below the usual Democratic target. Okay, but one of the big messages in these pro-Tillis ads for the African American community was that thanks to school choice legislation passed by the North Carolina legislature on Tom Tillis' behalf when he was Speaker of the North Carolina House, 18,000 low-income kids are now enrolled in private charter schools. Okay. Oh, but Kay Hagan, guess what? She sends her kids to private schools too, but she opposes the legislation to expand school choice. So what does that make Kay Hagan? Starts with an H, ends with an E. Hypocrite. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Now we talk about the U.S. Senate races in 2018. We'll start with Missouri. Josh Hawley, okay, he doubled the black vote from I don't know. He just doubled the black vote. I think from 2016 is what Robinson was saying. I didn't get that whole thing, but just know that he's very favorable there. And of course, that he won the election. Oh yeah, and by the way, in St. Louis, African American turnout dropped by half. Okay. From 2016. Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, she won her race too by over like 10 percentage points, I believe. She got 14% of the black vote. So remember, the target is 15% in the southern states, and Blackburn was right there. Okay, first time running too, and the first, I think the first woman ever to serve in the U.S. Senate from Tennessee, I believe. Ron DeSantis, his governor campaign, Florida. Robinson said that DeSantis really didn't he didn't really do much for outreach African Americans, but here's what helped him. Jeb Bush, when he was governor of Florida back in 2002, passed school choice programs. Okay, and get this: 100,000 black women voted for Ron DeSantis. Okay, let's repeat that. 100,000 African American black women voted for Ron DeSantis. Now, how much did Ron DeSantis win the governor's race in Florida by? What was his margin of victory? 30,000 votes. So, do you think targeting the black community makes a difference in politics? Yeah, absolutely does. So why in the world would Robin Hayes say no to this? Huh? Remember that. Remember that when you go vote at the state convention in June. Okay? Remember. 100,000 black women voted for Ron DeSantis, the Republican, over the black Democrat, Andrew Gillum. Okay? Remember that. And DeSantis won by how much? 30,000 votes. 100,000, 30,000. Get it? Got it? Good. Okay. And DeSantis, by the way, he hit the target of 15% of the African American vote, by the way. Okay, so what the Republican Party as a whole should know going into 2020 is that it's much easier to sell Donald Trump as president, believe it or not, than it is to sell the Republican Party. Okay, why is this? Well, go back to FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1932. He got 32% of the black vote. 1936, he got 76% of the black vote, up from 32% just 4 years prior. Why is that? Well, a lot of it was Herbert Hoover. He resegregated the White House, and he undid a lot of Calvin Coolidge's pro-black legislation as well. And remember, FDR also did not sell the Democratic Party either. Because remember, the Democratic Party at that time was, Jim Crow and KKK and stuff like that. Evil stuff like that. Okay. What is the top issue? This was a poll question that Vernon Robinson asked. Top issue of black women under 40. And the choices were health care, education, and criminal justice reform. Well, the answer is criminal justice reform is the top issue of black women under 40. Okay, and black women make up. This was a huge stat. This is like the stat of the night, I think. Well, not quite as jaw dropping as the Ron DeSantis race, but 69% of black voters in North Carolina are women. 69%. Okay. And remember, their top issue is criminal justice reform. And guess what president is doing criminal justice reform, and he passed it already? Oh, Donald Trump. Guess which president never talked about criminal justice reform? Barack Obama. See where I'm getting at? See? Okay. Bank tellers. Getting a job as a bank teller is it's a typical entry-level job. Most places will hire you with just a high school diploma. There may be some picky places out there that might look for, an associate's degree or a certificate of something in business, but right now there are more job openings than people. So most bank tellers will take you on it just with a high school diploma. Well, have you ever noticed when you go to a bank, there are like no black people, but there's plenty of Hispanics, okay? And then when you look at the Dallas public school system, if you want to teach in Dallas, well, you got to be required to speak Spanish. Where am I getting at? Well, the failure of both parties in Washington to secure the border has destroyed job opportunities for the African American community. Yeah, it's just horrible, And then we have Republicans like Tom Tillis who say, "Oh no, I don't want to do the wall. No. It's just, ugh. Let me call them out. Let's see: Tom Tillis, Marco Rubio, Ron Johnson, Susan Collins, and John Cornyn. Really. You five of you really disgust me. The Donald Trump is doing everything he possibly can to build this wall, okay? And the Democrats are doing everything they can to stop him. And guess what? You're joining the Democrats by stopping Donald Trump too. It's a horrible thing, by the way. Terrible. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. And for Ron Johnson, Marco Rubio, I expected... I'm very disappointed in you two. I expected you to stand by the president. You didn't. Tom Tillis and Susan Collins and Cornyn, yeah, you three are already rhinos in my book before this, but the other two are just really, yeah. Okay. Vernon Robinson then brought up the District 9 congressional race in North Carolina, which is red hot in the news right now. We're having hearings every day on this race in Raleigh, and they're being broadcast on WRAL.com via the internet. But Mark Harris Well, guess what? He's a guy who I really like a lot, okay? Probably one of my favorite figures in politics in North Carolina. But Mark Harris is human like all of us, and he makes mistakes. The biggest mistake Mark Harris made was that he did not reach out to urban contemporary radio stations. And there are two that cover his district like a big old blanket. And there's one in Charlotte and there's one in Fayetteville that both cover the district very well. And he failed to do that. And Robinson believes that if Mark Harris would have done this, then he would have won by like a lot more than 900 votes, and there would be no litigation going on right now. He would have been certified the winner way back in November, and he would be in probably, his sixth week in Congress already. But instead, we have this long, drawn-out thing because, again, unfortunately, in the Republican Party, is we just have so many people who just want to stay inside the lines. They don't want to go out and speak to, minority groups. They don't want to expand the tent for some reason, And then one final thing. I have some other things, but in his presentation, Robinson talked about the 2016 Republican primary, the presidential primary. And he said, sadly, very sadly, because I was a huge supporter of Ted Cruz in 2016 for president, Robinson said that Cruz will never be able to be president of the United States and will never be able to win a Republican presidential primary. Now, why is that? Well, according to Robinson, Ted Cruz's campaign had sent out a press release claiming that Ben Carson had dropped out 10 minutes before the Iowa caucus was to begin. Okay. Yeah. So you think about the growth of the black vote in the GOP, and Ted Cruz decided to do this to Ben Carson, the only black candidate who ran as a Republican in 2016. Don't look good for Ted Cruz. Unfortunately, he did that. But the good news for Ben Carson was after Ben Carson dropped out, I believe it was before March of 2016, he was one of the first candidates to endorse Donald Trump, and now Donald Trump has fully embraced black people, and this will be a great thing going forward for the GOP, as long as we don't continue to have dum-dums like Robin Hayes hold up this progress, right? But one of the coolest things about that night was we got some free swag. This is a nice little brochure here that talks about how to reach African Americans and get them to vote Republican. And then we have a speech that speech for local GOP leaders speaking to black organizations and audiences. I'm not gonna read this to you, but I'll just hit the highlights. Talks about life, restoring the ladder to economic opportunity, jobs, taxes, regulation, and increasing the wealth of your family. Wow. Power stuff. Because how many times, in society do we have this gap in America? It seems like that whites mostly are portrayed as wealthy and blacks are portrayed as poor. So again, when we mention increasing the wealth of your family, I mean, that right there, that sentence right there, I mean, that should be good enough for the Republicans to get 100% of the black vote, not just 15-20%, in my opinion. Okay, next issue, attack on the black middle class by unlimited illegal immigration, open borders, and sanctuary cities. Fifth is the right of self-defense, and sixth, and probably one of the most important issues, is criminal justice reform. Okay. All right. Well, that is all I got to say about that wonderful presentation done by Vernon Robinson. If you ever have an opportunity to go see this convention, if you ever have the opportunity to go see Vernon Robinson and he's in your county, or even if he's an hour and a half down the road in Moore County, please make every effort to go see this man. He's very intelligent, and I believe that he's doing great things to the Republican Party, and he's going to continue to do great things as long as we don't have idiots like Robin Hayes standing in his way. Okay? So, for the Conservative Pelican, I'm Bobby Crawford. Good night.